Hello, 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 and welcome to Butterfly Bootcamp. First of all, I'm so excited for you. So excited for you. Um, these next 6 to 12 months of your life are going to completely transform, and you are going to find that you have far more within you than you ever dreamed or imagined you might have. So today I just want to give you a bit of an overview as to how the whole thing is going to go and let you know where to find things and how to start, and hopefully that will get you primed and ready to begin when we open the cohort. So the first thing I want to do is I want to come over to the question of what types of things you're going to need to get started. So a lot of people are like, oh, what do I need to get? What do I need to get right now? What can I wait to get? So what I have right here is I have my mesa, my medicine bag, some people might call them. This is where I keep my kuyas, which are medicine stones, shamanic medicine stones. And this cloth, it's a ceremonial cloth, a Mastana ceremonial cloth. You can get them to be woven in the tradition of the shamans of the Andes. A lot of people really prefer to do that. It is absolutely not required. Really, the whole purpose of the ceremonial cloth, and I can even unfold it for you to show you. The whole purpose of it is to give a protective layer to wrap your medicine stones in. To keep them sacred, to keep them contained. And then inside my Mastana, I personally like to use this drawstring jewelry bag just to keep a little separation between the stones inside. And so for me, and this thing has traveled with me all over the place, I just chose a sort of pagan Wiccan pattern. You can choose whatever pattern you want. You can have it be a plain piece of cloth. But 24 inches square is ideal for the folding that we're going to do, and I will show you that in class. You're also going to need to acquire 13 medicine stones. We call them kuyas. And you can acquire them in any way that feels right. There are some people who believe that you really need to only be gifted the stones. But I think that the world we live in doesn't necessarily really permit that as often as we would like. And so it's okay to buy them. It's okay if you purchase the stone. But I will show you also how to choose a stone, or as we like to say, how the stone chooses you. Right now, just to get started, you need the first 3. If you want to get a little bit ahead, get the first 6. And of those 6, one of them needs to be a black stone, one of them needs to be a red stone, and one of them needs to be a yellow stone. Those are the only 3 stones in the entire 13 that have any color requirements, and we'll get to that later. But if you want to get started, if you want to get 6 stones already ready, 6 crystals, whatever they are, have those ready to go, at least the first 3 before we begin. Because you'll use those for your first 3 life issue problems you want to work on the medicine wheel. So the next thing, which for me, my pendulum is sort of one of the most vital tools that I have. Because me personally, my skills that I have in the shamanic world I get very subtle hints and energy and intuition and images and symbols. I don't get super detailed information. And so if I'm ever unsure about anything, the pendulum is a fantastic way to get a totally independent yes or no question. You just have to train it. What is yes and what is no? So I recommend getting a pendulum right away. And what you might do as you're shopping for your stones and for your pendulum, if you're in a place where you're allowed to actually handle them with your hands, I recommend just seeing how it responds to you, seeing how it feels in your hands. So your 13 stones, your pendulum, your cloth. And then you're going to need a rattle. A rattle is one of the basic tools in the shamanic energy medicine work. It helps us to do tracking. It helps us to get in a sort of meditative state. The rhythms help to call in sacred spirit. We use to open sacred space. I just got mine online. This one is in the style of the Shamans of the Andes. Again, it really doesn't matter what kind of rattle you use. And I want to also mention that you won't need it right away, but you should have some sort of drum eventually. And you don't have to get a fancy shaman's drum. You can, if you want to make your own, that's amazing because a lot of attention goes in. But this one has served me well, and it was like $10 at Ross. Okay, so you do not have to spend a lot of money on this. And really, the reason we need a drum is, again, it's just to get us into that meditative state, to organize our breathing practices, and it just really helps with when those rhythms are there to help us breathe a little more slowly and tap into spirit. It can be very helpful. But this is not really necessary right away, but a rattle definitely is. And then for this work, you absolutely positively need a journal. I actually recommend getting 3. I like to have one journal totally dedicated to dreams. I like to try to keep it either near my bed or near my morning practice where I have, my morning meditation space. You want it handy because as soon as you wake up in the morning, you want to document your dreams. And so I like to have one just for dreams. And then I like to have one that's more of kind of like my conscious mind note-taking journal, things that are just very practical things. And then I like to have a third one for visions and meditations. You can have all 3 into one. It doesn't really matter, but I really like having 3 journals, at least. I have many. And I'm going to show you some of my favorites. So I always like getting a journal that really feels good and looks good because I'm very happy to find it. I'm very happy to open it. I have found that this company called Peter Pauper Press is, I think, what are these, around 15 or 16 bucks. The quality of the pages is excellent. They're thick enough that when you write on one page, it doesn't bleed through on the other side, which I find particularly annoying in cheaper quality journals. And also, here's the thing that one of my mentors taught me a while ago. When you have a pen and paper that feel good as you write, your writing practice will deepen and expand. And so I love these Peter Pauper Press. Again, I just ordered them on Amazon, but they are out of New York State, I believe. So if you wanted to try to find them directly and give them your business, I don't make any money off of it. I just really like them. And then my favorite inexpensive pen, you can get fancy ones if you want, but this brand Tool, T-U-L, I just find that it rolls very smoothly. And so it's really, again, it's a pleasure to write in my journal. Because you're going to want to take a lot of notes. You're not going to want to forget a lot of the things that you do here. You're going to want to remember them and make art about them for the rest of your life. So keep your journals. And then in terms of organizational, my favorite journal, or I guess this is more like a planner or agenda, is this one called Dream Book. And it's put out by a company called thedragontree.com. So I find that this one is really excellent for just kind of goal setting and tracking of what your priorities are, which for me is important. Otherwise, I feel like I'm lost in a pit of chaos. Okay, now the next item, which technically I think this is one of those items that I very rarely use, my ceremonial knife, but it is good to have on hand, and I actually have 2. And I'm going to tell you how it was presented to us that there are 2 kinds of knives that a shaman might use. One of them is one that has ever cut living skin and drawn blood, and the other one is one that has never done that. I actually don't know for sure if my metal knife has ever drawn blood, because when I bought it, I immediately dulled it down to use for stage purposes to have it be safe. And so this one I almost never use. But this one would be one you would want to use if you have one that's like heavy duty. I keep this on hand for any time there are really gnarly entanglements. Like if I, for example, if I needed to go in and do an unraveling of an ancestral curse, I would want to have a very strong tool on hand. But the other one I use on a more regular basis, but even still not that often, is just this little bitty selenite wand. This one I use for cord cutting ceremonies, most of all. Occasionally I will use it if I am needing to dig out some particularly persistent, heavy energy. But the other thing, I want to remind people that it's not about the tools. It's not about how much money you spend on your tools. Something that can be equally as sharp in the invisible world, a feather, or even the backside of your hand. When you use your intention and your imagination, you can make things as sharp or as dull as you need to be. So a ceremonial knife is good to have on hand. Don't rush. It's not going to be required right away, and you can use other things in substitution. So the last thing, and again, this won't be needed right away, but I do recommend at least shopping around and looking for who you're going to get it from. I can recommend Kirby Sade. This is the extraction crystal, and this is probably the tool that I spent the most money on. And the reason I did is because we were taught that the crystal can't have any flaws or occlusions or anything like that, because when we do an extraction, the being or spirit or entity that is trapped needs to be able to see that they're going into a beautiful cathedral of light. Because then that really makes the extraction a much easier process for the person who is afflicted. And so this one is made by a vendor that the Four Winds approves of. He's got great quality work, and he even sells these really awesome cushioned containers. So those are the basic things you're going to want to start shopping around for right away before we even begin our work together. So I'll see you in the next video. I cannot wait to see what a beautiful butterfly you become. Cheers.